Today on Capechi's Corner, we're going to look at the nth root. Now, up to this point, you've done a lot of square roots, right? For instance, you know that the square root of 25 is equal to 5, and we have 5 squared is equal to 25. They kind of are related, right? They go back and forth. That's because finding the square root of a number and squaring a number are inverse operations. Well, that holds true to other powers, right? Other roots. So it holds true for x to the third, x to the fourth, x to the fifth, and so on. They're just kind of a generic. So for instance, when I take 4 times 4 times 4, when I multiply that 3 times, I get 64. If I take this third root of 64, I get 4 because 4 is a cube root of 64. Now, again, just a reminder, the number or the combination of number and variables underneath the radical sign is called a radicand. This number right here is called the index. It's what root are we taking? Are we taking the third root, fifth root, or is it just a square root? Now, when we have the square root, the number there is actually 2, but we just don't write it. We know that if I just see a square root by itself, that you're assuming that that number is 2. Now we're going to simplify. So looking at number 1, we have the square root of 16y to the second. So we know the square root of 16 is 4. And then the square root of y to the second, remember that's a 2 there. So we take 2 divided by 2, and I have y to the first, or y. Now number 2, we have that plus or minus, that it's just going to come right down. That's out front. The square root of 25, x to the 8th. So the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of x to the 8th. So we're going to take 8 and we're going to divide it by 2 because that's actually our index there, and we get 4. So that's x to the 4th. So plus or minus x to the 4th. Now the same thing with number 3. The difference here is we have a negative sign, right? So remember that the square root of -1 is equal to I. So we have the square root of -16 is going to equal to 4i. So that's going to go out front, 4i. And then we have x to the 4th, which is square root of that is x squared. And then y to the 10th is y to the 5th. Square root of y to the 10th is y to the 5th. So that's our final answer right there. Okay, now we're going to move on to roots other than the square root. Okay, so y to the 4th we know is y times y. There's 4 of them, right? So when I take the 4th root of y to the 4, I get y to the 1st. Final answer. Okay, looking at the next one, we know the 5th root of 243 is 3. And when we're dividing, we know that the 5th root of a to the 20th, 20 divided by 4 gives us 4. So that's going to be part of our answer down there. But I do want to show you why that is with the variables. If I have a to the 20th and I break that down by a to the 5th because of that index, it's a to the 5th, a to the 5th, a to the 5th. There are 4 of those, which is why we get that 4 right there. Okay, and our final part of that is the 5th root of b to the 25th is b to the 5th. So that's our final answer right there. Okay, so let's continue. And our next one, the cube root of 125 is 5. Now again, x to the 12th, I divide that by 3 and I get x to the 4th. Same thing with my y, I get y to the 7th. And the same thing with my z. That's going to give me z to the 1st, so I don't need to write anything. So that's my final answer. No power, right? We just assume that that's to the 1st. Okay. Moving on, let's look at number 7. Now this negative sign is out front, so I'm just going to rewrite that. Now this is grouped. So this binomial is as a group. Now remember, our index there is 2. We just don't write it. So that final answer is I'm not going to do anything with that x and the 3 separately. That's a binomial. They have to stay together. So that's my final answer right there because it's raised to the 2nd power. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. And then we don't usually write the 1, so we just know that's our final answer right there. Okay, now let's look at this as if it's just a little bit different. This time the negative sign is inside, right? And again, remember that the square root of -1 is equal to I. So this I is going to go out front, and then x plus 3 is going to be outside. Okay, last one for today. The 6th root of 64 is 2. And then I have x squared minus 3. 18 divided by 6 gives me 3. Thanks for stopping by today. Have a great day.